Evening guys, what's up? So tonight we're going to be talking nutrition. Now, of course we've spoken about nutrition before in the past, but tonight we have a specific question from Brian, which is, I think a lot of people are confused about nutrition. Very, very true. We hear about keto, carnivore, Mediterranean, etc. What do you think is a good nutrition plan? Now, as we've just said, you hear about lots of different nutrition plans out there. Like every different expert or guru has a different idea on what the perfect diet is, whether it's keto, carnivore, Mediterranean, vegan, vegetarian, Pritikin, Atkins, and so on, or track macros, don't track macros, use a hand side guide, and all these different things. Make sure you weigh all your calories out and so on. Like there's lots of different ways to approach nutrition, and the catch is they're all right and they're all wrong. Now, what I mean by that is ultimately the majority of them are wrong for the majority of people in the long run because they don't account for our biochemical individuality. But the plus side for most diets is most people will get good results regardless of the diet they choose, because that particular diet often tends to be much better than the way that they are currently eating. So even though it might not be perfect, it might not yield the best results possible, they're likely to get good weight loss results or feel healthier and so on, because they're suddenly going to be conscious of what it is they're eating. And most of the time prior to starting a new diet or a new nutrition plan or anything like that, we often just eat whatever's available, whatever's convenient and easy for us to get hold of. But obviously when it's a case of, right, now I'm decided I'm going in on this, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to build muscle, I'm going to get out of pain, I'm going to, whatever the goal might be, once we do that, we become much more conscious of what we're eating. We tend to overall reduce calories, which most of these diets will kind of recommend somewhere, like don't eat excessively. Then there is also a limitation on junk foods and refined foods. And generally speaking, there will be what's the word I'm looking for? A recommendation, to increase your intake of things like healthy vegetables, healthy fruits, meats, fish, veg, and so on. Like, so basically they tell you to eat natural whole foods and avoid all the junk foods and so on. And the only thing that tends to differ is how extreme they are in the ratios that they're recommending. Like, are they recommending predominantly animal foods, or are they recommending predominantly plant-based? Are they recommending mostly fat, or are they recommending mostly protein or mostly carbs and so on? So the only thing that changes is the way the meal is structured. Ultimately, the meals tend to be comprised of the same things, but just in different ratios, which is why they'll ultimately lead to a result. The catch is you have to be careful, because long term, particularly, most of them won't necessarily lead to the result that you want. So just because you're on a calorie restrictive diet, yes, you might lose weight, but you might not actually like the way you look when you've lost that weight, because it maybe is overly restrictive, maybe doesn't have enough protein, and therefore you also lose muscle mass with your fat mass. So then you end up skinny fat. So it's like, oh cool, I've got this new body that's not fat, so it's kind of better than it was, but I'm still not happy with it. Or it might be a case of you've picked one of these diets that worked enough to get you to the result that you wanted, but then it's not sustainable. It's a diet that's too restrictive, maybe has not enough of the types of foods that you like to eat, and therefore, again, you don't want to stick to it because, yeah, it got me to my result, but it's not the way I want to live. It's not the types of foods I want to eat, and therefore, again, tends not to lead to long-term results. So we fall off the bandwagon, we give up, and then eventually end up back where we were, and sometimes even further than we were. Gain more weight or in more pain, less fitness, more injury, and so on. So what do I think is a good nutrition plan? Obviously was the second part of Brian's question. Now, as I say, they can all get results, but they're not all necessarily going to work for you long term. So what you ideally need is something that is individualized in some way. Now, I am plugging my nutritional method, but you don't have to use mine. But you have to use one that is based around similar principles. So if you haven't got it yet, I have a report or a PDF that you can download, which is called my Metabolic Meal Method Report. And basically that has a dietary or a nutrition protocol or plan in there. It's a specific way to eat based on your hand. So you use your hand as your portion size guide. So your proteins, for example, are the size and thickness of your palm. And then your vegetables, you'd have a fist size would be a serving of vegetables. And then a cupped handful would be a serving of your starchy carbohydrates. And then a thumb size serving, or a teaspoon, is the size of your fat portions. Now, of course, based on your particular goals, the amounts of those portions that you need for each meal is going to vary slightly. But the report explains all that. But what it does ultimately is gives you a way to remove the bad shit that shouldn't be in the diet, and that's all explained in the report. And then it gives you a way to introduce the good things. So, first thing, what do I think is a good nutrition plan? Of course, I think my metabolic meal method is a good nutrition plan. So I would recommend, if you don't have it, drop a comment drop a comment below this video, and I'll get that sent over to you. You don't have to opt in via email or any of that if you don't want. Literally just let me know. I can send that over to you. It's absolutely free. That will get you started, and for many of you will get you to your goal. What you might then need later, if your goal becomes more specific or more extreme, then you might need to tweak it and individualize it. So it might be a case of, right, well, protein's got to go up, carbohydrates got to come down. Or it might be a case of, oh, well, based on my specific body type, so we've got 3 different body types that you might be, and based on whichever one of those body types are, we have to adjust the ratios up or down. But that's something we can discuss later. But what we need to do long term is individualize the diet. But for simplicity's sake, as I say, either get my metabolic meal method or literally just remove the junk. So for most people, it's just we opt for convenience and we eat too much shit food. So if you are willing to and you have the discipline, one of the best ways to actually start getting healthier is just get rid of that shit that's in your diet. The stuff that's causing you to be overweight, the stuff that's causing the blood sugar disruptions, the stuff that's causing the pain, the inflammation, the bloating and the gas and all the rest of it. Eliminate that stuff, which, as we know, tends to be all the processed, refined foods, vegetable oils, things like that, things that contain too much sugar. Remove those and just eat more of the healthy things. So meat, fish, veg, fruit, herbs, spices, and so on. Like if you want nuts, seeds, legumes, grains, pulses, and all the rest of it, they can be had too, as long as you're not intolerant to them. So you don't have to follow necessarily a strict protocol. I've got to have this much of that or this. Like literally just get rid of the bad stuff and eat more of the good is the simplest way for most people. Now, if you then at that point start to listen to the symptoms and the signals that your body gives you, that can help you to tweak whether you're eating too much protein or not enough carbs or too much fat or not enough fat and so on. Because your body will speak to you through the language of symptoms, and then you can tweak the things that you're eating, the ratios in your meals between your proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. You tweak those ratios based on how you feel after the meal. So again, if this is something you want me to go into in more detail, I can, but I don't want to make this video too long. But drop a comment below. I'll do another video that digs into this and symptoms that you could expect to experience and so on. But keep it simple. Like literally just get rid of the bad stuff, replace it with the good stuff. What most people find is if you actually just start eating the good stuff, you therefore don't have room for the bad stuff and therefore crave it less, want to eat it less, because you'll feel fuller and more satiated by eating the good stuff, because it creates the correct chemical signals in the brain and in the body and the hormonal system that tell you, oh, I've had enough food now. Cool, I can stop eating. Whereas a lot of the processed stuff that we have that's manufactured to have specific ratios of proteins and fats that trigger what we call the bliss point in the brain, because they are manufactured to trigger these responses and these particular chemical and hormonal responses, they shut off over time our body's ability to recognize its fullness. So for example, you guys, I'm sure you've heard the tagline for Pringles, once you pop, you can't stop. Well, there's a reason for that. Like they are specifically manufactured in a way where the salts, etc., are devoid of the minerals that would normally be in salt. So you start eating it, and your body goes, oh, these are nice, these are nice. Keep eating, keep eating. And the reason it's telling you to keep eating is because it's looking for the nutrition that's supposed to be there in the salt. So salt on average, if we're talking like Celtic sea salt, will have anywhere around 84 plus vitamins and minerals, 84 plus minerals in. Whereas the sea salt, the table salt, the sodium chloride that they use in these types of products has only 2 minerals. Well, when your body gets that, it's like, well, where's the fucking rest? The ratio's off here. It doesn't make sense. So our biochemistry encourages us to keep eating because it's trying to find the nutrition that should be available with the salts and so on in the food. And that's obviously just one example. Oreos are the same, and so on. So without going into too much more detail, I'm going to kind of leave it there. So yes, you can try all these other diets that all these other experts and gurus out there will recommend. Just be aware they probably won't last long term. One, because they tend to be overly restrictive and not enjoyable to stay on. And what you'll find is often after a certain period of time, when your biochemistry catches up, it kind of says, actually, this isn't what I need to function optimally. And then we start to experience negative symptoms as a result of this diet being devoid in certain nutrients that we maybe should be getting because it's too far extreme in any one of the directions, as in towards too much protein or too much fat or too much carbs or whatever it might be. So I'll leave it there, guys. Hopefully that's clear enough. And if you have any more questions, as I say, post them below. I'll more than happily answer. And if you want me to dig into anything specific that I spoke about today in some more detail, also, I'm more than happy to do that. Thanks for watching, people. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Take it easy.